I'll introduce you right now, Nicker. All right, with us now at Akron University at the Hoop for Coop is Romeo Travis. Romeo, tell me about yourself, where you went to school, where you grew up, how life was when you were growing up.
I'm Romeo Travis. I'm from Akron, Ohio. Started off young in the Rosemary Apartments over here off of Arlington, but by Arlington Plaza. Moved around quite a bit. Uh, Settled on South Street in Sherman in the middle school era. When I got to Reedinger, that's when I played football, but that's the first time I played organized basketball was seventh grade. So I was what you call a late bloomer. And so I started playing basketball in seventh grade. I was actually a football guy. So I played football when I was 8, all the way up until middle school. Then I didn't play. Then I played in high school. But I went to Central Howard my freshman year. I was going to go to Bookdoor until the coach kept calling me Romero. And
And they were early Key and Peele speech.
yeah, like you just keep messing my name up, man. And I actually went to go meet Coach Sims, and he never came. And so I left and went to Central Howard, and I did a year at Central Howard, and some things happened there. Coach Bet Frazier, shout out to Coach Bet, one of my favorite guys. He was a great coach, great person. He was more than a coach to me. Like he helped me a lot just by showing me like it's okay to be a giver, like to give freely. He was like he'd take the whole team to Ryan's. There'd be like 15 guys who were going to Ryan's, and I'm like, man, like, and I'm not even thinking about it in my adult mind, but now that I look back, you've taken a whole basketball team, 15, $20 every Monday, like, that's a sacrifice. And so, I shout out to Coach Bet. They fired him at Central, and so that opened the gate up for me to,
I never understood that.
yeah, it was, he missed the team banquet and paid for all his trophies out of his own pocket. But his mother had eye surgery the same day, and they asked him like, "You can't miss," and he missed it because he asked him just to move it one day forward or one day after, and they wouldn't, and so they fired him. And so that opened the door for me to transfer schools, and that's when I went to St. Vincent-St. Mary, and that's how I met you. That's how I met John.
So, what are your first memories of that? That was at the court, or
It had to be at lunchtime. It kind of forced, kind of forced meetings, kind of like Coach Dru, like make sure you go see John, make sure you talk to John. I believe I think it was Saturday morning practices also in the locker room. We would spend a lot of time in the locker room after practices, and you would always bring those laminated cards, and they would have Bible verses on them, and we would talk about each Bible verse, and at the time you don't pay a lot of attention to them, you don't really digest the information, you're just trying to get it over with. So you fake paying attention, you fake being involved.
then you turn around and I stuck them on your locker.
And then they're everywhere you look now. If you go to St. V now, they're everywhere. Quotes and Bible verses are all over the locker room. It's something you started. It's still, yeah, 20 years later, 25 some odd years later. So that's amazing. And at St. V, as a young kid, trying to figure out who I was, you don't want to talk to God because the things you're doing aren't approved of. And so you cut that off. You kind of compartmentalize, so the things you do, you compartmentalize. Like, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but I like it. I know I'm not supposed to do it, but I'm having fun. And so, once you learn to compartmentalize, it's a dangerous thing. It's really dangerous. Because that compartment just gets bigger and bigger, bigger, and you just keep filling it up with stuff, and the other compartment of God and Jesus and the church and doing the right thing keeps just getting smaller and smaller. And so, it becomes
You gonna tell that one story?
I gotta tell it. And so, I wasn't a big smoker, ironically, and that's what made it really fun. More, yeah, because I don't I never, really liked smoking weed. Let's be honest. I did, I dabbled in smoking, but I never really enjoyed it all like that. I just happened to be with a girl. She wanted to smoke, and so I smoked with her. And then she was like, "Okay, where you want to go?" And she dropped me off at a basketball game. So I'm not a smoker, so I'm high, walking around a basketball game, and I'm by myself with the orange shirt on. So it's like, I'm not trying to be conspicuous or anything. I'm just high and stupid. And so I'm walking around this gym, and you know, I run into you. Out of all people, I run into John, and you said so. I'm not looking at. I'm just kind of just looking off. Well, and you walked up to me, and you was like, "Hey." I'm like, "I'm high. I'm high as a kite." And you just like, "Hey." I'm like, "Hey." You like, "I'm not going to say anything to you right now, but I just want you to know that I'm disappointed in you." And you walked away. And that hurt. Like, that really, like, man, like, that's the worst thing you can do is kind of like disappoint somebody. You really rather just get yelled at and then just be over with. So it's just,
Probably just because I shook hands with you, but I could smell it.
yeah, I mean, you called me there. I was sitting somewhere and you called me, like, "Come here." And he was like, "I'm just disappointed in you." And like from that day, which was like, I don't know, maybe my sophomore or junior year, I didn't touch weed for probably 8, 9, 10 years. Like I didn't smoke for, because I didn't like it anyway. And that was just like I cut that off instantly. And so like that was one of the initial things that I knew that I can stop anything, like at any time. So like I'm a very hot and cold person. Like if I want to stop something like today, it's like I stopped eating pork. I love ribs. Like I loved them growing up. And my grandmother had 2 heart attacks and a stroke in like 6 months. I haven't eaten pork since 2007. And so like those are the things where I know like I'm strong enough to be able to cut those things off. And so that situation really still weighed. Like I still remember that situation very clearly, even though I was high, which is very ironic because you don't remember much. Well,
What do you remember about like when we would visit during lunch times? About because I would invite you to go over to the library, and then you did that for 3 years.
I mean, it was just planting seeds. Of seeds don't always grow when you want them to.
Why would you go though? Because
I'm familiar with church. I grew up in church. My grandmother, who I lived with during high school, she's a pastor. She was a pastor. She passed away, but she was a pastor. And so I grew up in church. My grandmother would come get us every Sunday. It'd be about 8 of us in a Ford Probe. So if y'all don't know what a Ford Probe is, it's a 2-door with two rows, but it's a 2-door car, very small, like sports car. And so it would be like 4 people in the hatch, it'll be 4 in the seat, and then 2 in the front seat. And then like that's how many, because my grandmother has 30 grandkids. So she would pile as many of us as she could in the car and take us to church. So I was familiar with church. I grew up in it. I come from a large family, a large church family, a large church family. When they say the Travises leave, they say church over, because that's how many of us it was. So I was familiar with it, and for me, I wanted to go because I wasn't going to church as much as we had practice on Sundays. We traveled a lot, so I wasn't going to church as much as I wanted to. So I wanted to get the word. I kind of wanted to be like, we have something in you, and you don't know why you want that. Like, as we all had this innate feeling of wanting that, like something, and I wanted that. I didn't know why, but I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to learn more. I wanted my questions answered, and so
Great at asking questions.
that's the gift and the curse. That's one of the things that really get me in trouble is asking the right questions at the wrong time.
well, you came over to St. B at a time which was the golden era. A nationally known team. You guys won a state title first. Well, before you got there, then when you got there, right off the gap, back won a state title. Then Coach Dan Broad left, and this was you can name who was all on the team. But your junior year was a learning curve because of you describe it yourself.
When you start, it was a lot of things. Mostly just a lack of maturity. The day before the game, I was taking Jello shots. At 17 years old, getting, drinking. The day before the game, before 11 a.m. game. But, man enough to admit that, it's just a lack of maturity, lack of focus, lack of discipline. It's nothing Coach Dru could have did,
That's on your own.
Yeah, that's, just we wasn't ready for what was in front of us. We didn't understand how serious the situation was, how we could have been the only team ever to win 4 state championships. Well, them, they won, could have been, but I could have been a part of that. You know, and as I got older, you understand lack of sleep, drinking affects you know, your timing. It affects your your focus. It affects your hand-eye coordination, and all these things. And I found out,
Mm.
you know, and so it's like you play all these things back in your head
You talking about the title game?
in the championship game. You know, I found out, and you play all these things back in your head as you get older, and it's just like one night, you know, and I always talk about, you know, you go get the same test till you pass it. And so, like, you know, that was the first time that I did that, but it wouldn't be the last, you know. So there's other times throughout my career where I was drinking the night before the game, partying, having sex day of the game, like, you know, just lack of focus, lack of maturity, lack of discipline. And it's just, you know, these things are just, you want to get the same test till you pass it. Until I was about 30 something, until you know, late 20s, early 30s, until I really settled into, okay, like, this is what we're doing. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm not going to do. And, you know, my life really changed when I started to, you know, have discipline. My father-in-law he always tell me, you know, water is a special thing because it can be dangerous, it can be helpful. And without boundaries, a water can turn into a swamp where nothing can live. But with boundaries, it can turn into a river which can feed a country. And so when you add boundaries to certain things, like, you know, it gives you direction, it gives you order, and it's not always a no. It's like, you know, I public speak sometimes, and I always ask people, like, what are you willing to do? I'm willing to do anything. I'll do anything. I said, what are you willing not to do? And I ask people, what are you willing not to do? Well, you know, and they always just, you know, they get stopped at that question because we always say we're willing to do, like, I'll do anything. But what are you?
We're gonna drag all the garbage with us.
Like what are you not willing to do? And so that's something that I had to learn over time, and it really was a painful lesson, but I had to learn it.
So going back to, you know, you guys lost that championship game, and then I remember that meeting Coach Dru had at the beginning of your senior year, and it seemed like he was willing to lose everything in order to do the right thing by you guys. And maybe it's my recollection is incomplete, but there seemed to be a group attitude. We're going to honor God this year. What do you remember about that?
I remember a lot. There was no cursing. Loud, 25 push-ups, a curse word. You know, including the N-word, which was, you know, it was frequently used. It was not a derogatory term as we used it, but, you know, it was considered curse words. We were really focused on, you know, it wasn't so much about the cursing or not cursing. It's about respecting the rules. It's about respecting the boundaries, respecting these things that we said we're going to do. And that was really helpful for us because, you know, once you figure out you can talk without cursing, so now you can fill those words with other, you know, those spaces with other words. And you really start to focus on, okay, if I can do that, what else can I do? What else can I can take that away. What else can I add? You know, and so we started to really focus on God. Like, you know, it started to more team meetings, more prayer, more Coach Dru. We start every practice with prayer. We end every practice with prayer, you know, and being at a Catholic school, like that happened to be a blessing because you can't do that at public school.
Yeah.
You know, you can, but you got to go through a lot of red tape to get that done.
I remember each of you seniors even taking a turn on leading a devotional chapel too. Do you remember?
No, I don't even remember that, but that's great. Like, you know, I have a terrible memory with certain spaces, but I'm glad we did that.
Yeah, and then we came up with those the giant Jesus name shirts. Some guys were wearing it under or over their jerseys, and
Yeah, I remember those shirts.
then using them in the press conferences and stuff. So, how did you guys handle? You know, there's a lot of, you know, you're traveling a national schedule. You know, you had a teammate that's bringing a lot of attention. You have these challenges against other highly ranked teams and with big players, and you know, no one player can win it. You're the guy that had to get in there and bang against people 6, 7 inches taller than you sometimes. How'd you handle that pressure?
Pressure ain't real, first and foremost. I don't believe in pressure. You know, it's not real to me. Like, you know, you do the work, you prepare yourself, then now you're just living in the moment. Like, you know, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. If a guy is bigger than me, that means I'm probably faster than him. If the guy is stronger than me, it probably means he ain't that smart. Which is, kind of a stereotype, but, this is what I'm always trying to figure out a way to get an edge, because I was never the biggest. I played, center against 7-footers.
Yeah.
I'm six, I was 6'6" at the time, so, and I just, actually I would lie to myself, which what I've come to find out is positive self-talk. I would just tell myself lies, like hype myself up, like, and just try to believe anything. Like, I can, he's going to Oklahoma State or he's going to Ohio State. I don't have a scholarship. I want that. I don't want his scholarship. I want my own. How can I get my own? I gotta play harder than him. I gotta play smarter than him. I gotta, and so I would just tell myself these things and just, and just try to hype myself up to really be in the moment and be present and just, because it really was no pressure for us, because if I had 2 or if I had 10, everybody's coming to see LeBron. Let's just be like, doesn't matter. Like, so like people don't care if I had 2. Like, they don't care. Like, we care as a team because they relied on me. But as as a general, there's no pressure because I knew that they weren't coming to see me. But I knew when they left, they were going to remember me.
Yeah.
And so, like, that was my goal, is to, growing up without a father, like, that was another thing that, like, he don't want to come see me. He going to read about me in the newspaper. And so, like, that was something, and my agent talked about it all the time. Like, when I found my wife, when we found each other, just like, man, I don't like Happy Romeo. Like, you too blissful. You don't play the same. I'm like, I'm not the same. I'm not driven by anger anymore. Like, they used to call me Angry Man. I was driven by anger. Like, that was my fuel. Like, I would use anger and, disappointment and all these things, and I would use it as fuel. And I did that for a very long time, but it was hurtful because I was re-traumatizing myself over and over and over, and I could never heal. Like, how can you heal if you keep re-traumatizing yourself?
Where do you find that time that it changed?
Really, when I started going to church, when my dad passed in 2018, and he was sick in the hospital with cancer, and so I had a choice. I had a choice to either let him die or forgive him, because once he died, like, we always think there's a comma for
Forgive him of what?
just not being present. Lies, constant lies. The disappointment, the anticipation of being there. I would sit on the porch and wait on he'll call, I'm coming to get you tomorrow at 3:00. I would sit on the porch. My friends would come. I'm not coming. Like, you want to go hang out? Nah, my dad coming. And my mom, shout out to my mom, she'd be like, just go play. Like, if you come, I'll have him find you. Just go play. Nah, I ain't gonna
Take a chance to visit.
I ain't miss. So I sit there for hours.
Is that what drives you to be the dad you are today?
Yeah, it's hard, but I could never. I would never.
How do you know how to be a dad?
I don't. I do not. I'm just swinging. Every pitch I'm swinging. I don't know. Sometimes I'm in my dad bag, and sometimes I'm not. Sometimes it's sometimes I strike out, but sometimes I hit a home run. You just got to keep swinging.
Is that what you value the most, honest sir?
No, there's nothing more important. There's nothing more important than my family. I turned down opportunities. I turned down jobs. I turned down, like, money.
Playing again.
I turned it. I quit. I quit playing. I was playing professional top division in France. I quit. Coach begged me to stay. I quit. My wife struggled. I can't do that. I can't play basketball while my wife's struggling. Like, so there's nothing more important than.
Because you know what it feels like on the other side.
I know what it's like to, like, just want to see your dad. Like, now I help my kids with their homework. And so before I left, I was helping with their homework. Now it's like, oh, you want to help me over, FaceTime. Like, it's like, it's not the same. Like, it's helpful, but it's not the same. I take my kids to school every day. I wake them up. I wake all of them up every day. I take them to school every day. So it's, people say I have to take my kids to school. I have to pick I get to pick my kids up. I get to take my kids to school. I get to come to programs. I get to, whatever. My daughters were cheerleading. I knew the cheers too. I was standing up cheering right along with them because it's not that the cheerleading is important. It's the support. Listen,
I'm going to ask you a hard question, so you choose to answer it however or not answer it at all. But I dealt with a lot of guys who have close friends that are really, really super famous, and it's hard to be that close as a friend, but see them in a completely different world. And when you were, I remember when you really flew up junior year when Brown was being covered so much, he'd be feeding you at the Gund Arena, or Clee was saying you throw a 30 and 10. And I'm like, here he is. He's on national stage. But when you're on the same court, it's almost like it makes you look bad because he's so ridiculous. And it was hard for you to get noticed when if you were anywhere else, you would have been really, really highly recruited. You were very highly recruited for football. You could get anywhere for football. So my question to you is as he's excelled and as you've had a nice, beautiful professional career, how have you dealt with that personally? Not either not being jealous or envious or
oh no, because we were on two different planes. Like God gave me a path. This mine. I own this path. This is for me. God, like I came from nothing. like $400 a month. Nothing. Like welfare, living in the projects, nothing. Like
as many people as you can fit in the house. But good $400.
man, it was five of us. I'm making pizza sandwiches. I'm putting a piece of bread, marinara sauce, and cheese in the microwave. That's where I come from. So that's my pat. Like jealous, I could never. Like that's his. That's for him. God made him that so I could be me. I could be so many other things, but God made me me. I am accessible. I can touch people. I can come home. I can go. I can help. Like it's such like
You don't have the whole world criticizing every move you.
I don't even like. I'm so blessed. Like it's like I'm so. I don't even like the money will be nice. I'll just say let's start there. I don't envy his life.
Take a special person to have.
To be him, I don't envy that life. He can't go to Target. I don't envy that. Like if I had some more money, I would be happier. Yeah, but as far as his life,
Comes with a price.
it comes with a very high price tag. But I'm thankful for him. I am so thankful for him, and just his ascension even took me from nothing to becoming something. Right? Like there was never I want to be Bron I knew like that's his. That is for him. Like I said, they're gonna come to see him. Great. They're gonna leave. They're gonna remember me. Like it was number 24. He played hard.
Yeah.
He's dunking everything. He was like oh whatever. So like that was for him. Like I'm so grateful for that situation to go how it went, and gave me opportunity. Because if I would have went to a bigger school, like who knows how that would have panned out for me. If I would have left home, who knows how that would have turned out for me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't question that at all. I'm thankful that I got to stay here. I played 4 years. I'm retired in my hometown. My college was closer than my high school from my house. I got 20 people at every game. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to the barbershop, just passing out tickets, just come to the game. Just because, like, I couldn't do that anywhere else. Like this.
Could have never traveled to see.
No, they ain't, this is mine.
But there's a funny story that goes with that. So we'll change it up and give you a little break here. Tell us that funny story. Almost before.